Hello, and welcome to some Dodge family history. This is where I present information and research on my ancestors who served in the military during the early 20th century. Today, I will be presenting on the military service of David Nemetzky Hospital Corps from his reenlistment in April of 1914 through April of 1917. We will use records that are available online, such as the bi-monthly muster rolls on Family Search and the morning reports on Fold 3, as well as the available National Archives records, such as special orders and correspondence from the Adjutant General's office to tell the story of this chapter of his military service. Following his honorable discharge on March 24, 1914, David Nemetzky remained in California and requested permission to reenlist in the Army. On April 8, 1914, a telegram was sent from the recruiting office at San Francisco to the Adjutant General's office, which reads, David Nemetzky, Hospital Corps, discharged March 24th, last, character excellent, weight 117, height 63/4, clerk, desired this party. He was approved for reenlistment and received at Fort McDowell, California on April 11, 1914. Upon his reenlistment, he was assigned to the 8th Company General Service Infantry at Fort McDowell. 2 days later, he was assigned to the General Service Infantry recruiting duty at 660 Market Street in San Francisco. However, it doesn't appear that Private Nemetzky lacked recruiting duty. On May 4, 1914, he prepared and submitted a request for transfer to the Hospital Corps at the Post Hospital, Presidio, San Francisco, California. He stated that he was unsuited to recruiting duty and he wanted to take the examination for Sergeant Hospital Corps. He listed his previous military experience and submitted his request through military channels. His request was approved, and on May 16, 1914, Special Order 115 from the War Department was issued, reading, Private David Nemetzky, General Service, Infantry, Recruiting Station, 660 Market Street, San Francisco, California, is transferred to the Hospital Corps and will be directed to report to the commanding officer, Presidio, San Francisco, California, for duty. He joined the Hospital Corps at the Presidio, San Francisco on May 23, 1914. Following his transfer back to the Hospital Corps, it wasn't long before he was back on detached service. On May 29, 1914, Special Order 122 was issued by the Western Department, ordering Private Nemetzky to report to the U.S. Army Transport Buford, which was to leave port around June 15th for various ports in Alaska. He was to be part of the Hospital Corps detachment aboard the Buford to provide any medical assistance as needed to those who would be aboard. From the Army and Navy Journal from June 27, 1914, we read, the Army Transport Buford was scheduled to leave Seattle, Washington, June 25th. The vessel arrives in St. Michael July 5th, departing from there on July 9th. It reaches Nome the following day, leaving on July 12th and arriving at Valdez July 18th. It reaches Fort William H. Seward July 22nd, leaves there July 24th, and reaches San Francisco July 30th. On the trip north, the transport is taking the battalion of the 14th Infantry to relieve the 30th Infantry. Following the return of the Buford to San Francisco, Private Nemetzky's detached service was extended per Special Order 170, which was issued on July 27, 1914. The Buford was ordered to sail to Monterey and San Diego, California. The Buford sailed from San Francisco on August 1, 1914. From the Army and Navy Journal dated August 1, 1914, Troops A, B, K, and M of the 1st Cavalry will sail from Monterey on the transport Buford to San Diego, California. The Buford then left San Diego on August 5, 1914, with the 29th, 47th, 69th, and 147th Companies of the Coast Artillery aboard, bound for return to San Francisco. The Buford returned to San Francisco on August 7, 1914, and Private Nemetzky was relieved from temporary duty on the 16th. In October of 1914, Private Nemetzky was attached to the 30th Infantry Regiment as part of the Sanitary Personnel Detachment. The 30th Infantry Regiment were stationed at the Presidio of San Francisco and in the process of preparing to be transferred to Plattsburgh Barracks in New York. The sanitary personnel were in charge of the health, medical treatment, and sanitary conditions of the encampment while the 30th Infantry Regiment were stationed in San Francisco and preparing for embarkation for their new headquarters. The 30th Infantry Regiment remained at the Presidio of San Francisco until they sailed for New York on Christmas Eve of 1914. The bi-monthly muster roll for the field, staff, and band for the 30th Infantry Regiment from September and October of 1914 record the Hospital Corps personnel that were assigned to sanitary personnel duty. The next muster roll from November and December of 1914 indicate that the sanitary personnel were dropped from the regiment roll upon their departure from San Francisco. While on detached service with the 30th Infantry Regiment, Private Nemetzky was promoted, once again, to the rank of private first class. 1915 continued with more detached service for Private First Class Nemetzky. In March of April of 1915, he was on detached service with Company F, 2nd Battalion Engineers. The Army and Navy Journal from March 27, 1915 reports that on March 15th, Company F of the Engineers, who received orders last week to proceed to San Francisco for duty at the Exposition, left Vancouver Barracks Monday morning. The San Francisco Exposition was a nearly year-long celebration from February to December of not only the opening of the Panama Canal, but also of how far San Francisco had come from the devastation of the 1906 earthquake. On May 15, 1915, Special Order 111 from the West Department was issued, which ordered Private First Class Nemetzky to be sent without delay to report to the General Superintendent, Army Transport Service, this city, San Francisco, for duty on the Transport Logan. He joined the Logan on May 19, 1915, as part of the Hospital Corps staff. The Logans left San Francisco on June 5, 1915, bound for the Philippine Islands, and arriving at the port of Manila on July 4th. The Logan began her return trip to the States, leaving Manila on July 15th and arriving back in San Francisco on August 12th. Private First Class Nemetzky returned to duty at the Presidio of San Francisco on August 26. In October of 1915, he was once again on detached service, this time as part of the sanitary personnel assigned to the 24th Infantry Regiment. The 24th Infantry Regiment had returned from the Philippines and were stationed at the Presidio. They remained at the Presidio until February 26, 1916, when they were transferred to Fort D.A. Russell, Wyoming. All of these experiences on detached service, along with his previous service in the Hospital Corps, prepared Private First Class David Nemetzky for promotion. On April 8, 1916, Special Order 78 was issued from Headquarters, Western Department, for a board of 3 medical officers to be convened to conduct an examination of a certain number of enlisted men of the Hospital Corps for promotion to the rank of sergeant. Private First Class Nemetzky was one of those under consideration for promotion. A complete handbook for the Hospital Corps of the U.S. Army indicates the requirements for being appointed to the rank of sergeant. They must pass an examination as to physical condition, character and habits, and general aptitude, and in the principles of arithmetic, in orthography and penmanship, in materia medica and pharmacy, care of sick and ward management, minor surgery and first aid, elementary hygiene, cooking and mess management, Army regulations, clerical work, and hospital corps drill. He passed these examinations and was promoted to the rank of sergeant on May 22, 1916. Sergeant Nemetzky was transferred from the Presidio of San Francisco to Fort Baker, California, just north across the bay from the Presidio, on June 26, 1916. Prior to this transfer, on March 6, 1916, his congressman, Walter Chandler, submitted a letter on his behalf requesting a transfer for David Nemetzky back to his station in or around New York City. The original letter from David Nemetzky no longer exists, so the reasons and details of this request are unknown. The Adjutant General responded to Mr. Chandler's request, which had been submitted on behalf of David Nemetzky, and explained that he had already served at several posts throughout the East, and that he had only been stationed at the Presidio of San Francisco since May of 1914, and that his request for a transfer back east would be denied. Another transfer, however, would soon be forthcoming for Sergeant Nemetzky. On August 12, 1916, he was transferred to the Camp of Instructions for Recruits, Medical Department, Fort Bliss, Texas. He was ordered to report to Fort Bliss fully equipped for field service. And as a side note, the Hospital Corps was incorporated into and became the medical department during this time in 1916. While at Fort Bliss, Texas, he was involved in a motor vehicle accident. The El Paso Times from October 28, 1916 reports, 3 soldiers hurt when auto truck hits Fort Bliss streetcar. 2 soldiers were seriously hurt and 1 soldier slightly injured yesterday morning at 11:50 o'clock when an ambulance truck from the Hospital Corps at Fort Bliss collided with an eastbound Fort Bliss streetcar at Boulevard and Campbell Street. Sergeant A. Maynard, Sergeant David Nemetzky, and Private D. Ingram, all of the Medical Corps, were hurled from the machine when the collision occurred. They were taken to the base hospital at Fort Bliss. Sergeant Nemetzky, who was driving the truck, was badly bruised about the body. 2 ribs probably are broken. Sergeant Maynard sustained several cuts about the face and head and possible internal injuries. Private Ingram received a cut on the lip and was bruised about the face and head. Witnesses say the ambulance truck was going at a good rate of speed on Montana Street and that Sergeant Nemetzky was unable to turn out when he saw the streetcar as he turned into Campbell Street. The automobile was knocked about 10 feet. The engine of the car was demolished. 2 windows in the streetcar were broken. The bi-monthly muster from September and October of 1916 indicate that Sergeant Nemetzky was in the hospital until October 29, 1916. It isn't known if he received any kind of punishment for his part in the accident, as no record of any disciplinary action has been located. In addition, the January and February 1917 bi-monthly muster for the Camp of Instructions for Recruits, Medical Department, Fort Bliss, Texas is not available. The published bi-monthly muster rules for the Medical Department on Family Search are taken from the microfilmed copies that are housed at the National Archives in St. Louis, and this particular muster rule appears to have not been microfilmed. At the end of 1916, Sergeant Nemetzky received orders for transfer to Base Hospital No. 5 at Nogales, Arizona, where he reported on February 8, 1917. His time at Nogales would be short, however, as he would be transferred back to the Presidio of San Francisco on April 24, 1917. He arrived back there 2 days later on April 26, and was part of the Medical Department Casual Detachment until May 10th, when he received orders and was assigned back to duty at the Presidio of San Francisco. After being denied a request for transfer to go back east a year earlier, Sergeant Nemetzky had been transferred 4 times in 1 year, from the Presidio to Fort Baker, to Fort Bliss, to Nogales, and back to the Presidio. While the records no longer exist, it is very likely that his term of enlistment would have ended on April 10, 1917. However, with the United States entry into World War I on April 6, 1917, it appears that his enlistment was extended for the duration of America's involvement in the war. Whether this was by his request or by general or special order from the Army is unknown. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation and found it informative. The preservation of the bi-monthly muster rolls and special orders help paint a picture of Sergeant Nemetzky's service in the Army and help replace much of the information that was lost when his 201 file was destroyed in 1973. In addition, the Adjutant General's office correspondence through 1916 give us additional insights into his service and his desires to stay in the hospital corps, as well as his hope to return back east. Along with this, we see the timeline of his promotions from private to private first class to sergeant, showing his growth and maturity through his experiences during this time. The next presentation will look at his military service in the medical department from 1917 through his honorable discharge in August of 1919. Thank you.